In this chapter, we're going to touch on a few more advanced topics. These are big topics that go beyond the scope of an essential training, but I want to give you some exposure to them because you will definitely encounter them as you grow as a Rails developer. And I think it will be helpful to have a basic understanding of them as a foundation for further exploration. The first topic we'll look at is deploying your application. Okay, so you finished developing your wonderful, amazing Rails application. It's time to forever change life as we know it by releasing it to the public. How do you do that? Well, I've broken it down into 4 steps. First, you find an ISP that offers Rails hosting. You set up an account with them and install all the software you'll need on their remote server. Then you pick a web server and you set that up. And finally, you gather a few tools to help you to deploy your code. Now there are a few more non-Rails tasks that you'll probably want to do, like buying a domain name, setting up the DNS, creating email accounts, but those are more general to deploying any website, and we could spend a lot of time on each one of those topics. I want us to instead stay focused on these 4 steps, which are unique to deploying a Rails application. Let's look at each one of them, starting with hosting. Now most ISPs offer some Rails support, so if you already have an ISP, you should check with them first. Find out what they provide and how much you can customize it. Ask if Rails hosting is a big part of their business, and if they have Rails experts on their support staff. Now here's a list of hosts that I would recommend in alphabetical order. I haven't used most of them, but they're all well regarded. Many of these companies were started by Rails pros when they became frustrated with other ISPs' slow adoption of Rails. Even though that's changed, what makes these companies continue to stand out is their Rails expertise. Most times the technical support person helping you knows more about Rails than you do, and even as a beginner, that won't always be true at all hosting companies. Now these companies offer a wide range of services at prices ranging from $5 or less per month up to over $3,000 per month. You'll still need to do your homework to determine which one is right for you. Some offer a hands-off, do-it-yourself approach, where you get a blank Linux server and it's up to you to install everything and know your way around. Other hosts offer servers with all the software pre-installed and provide more hand-holding for beginners. Some offer virtual private servers, others offer cloud-based servers. Some include more memory or bandwidth than others. You get the idea. Shop around. Once you've picked a host, then you'll want to install software on the remote server. The software that you're going to need is going to be the same software that we've used for this tutorial. Ruby, Ruby Gems, Rails, MySQL, and the MySQL gem, which allows Ruby and Rails to talk to MySQL. Now if you're on the Mac, during this tutorial you may have relied a lot on some pre-installed software for the Mac and not gone through installing all of this software. And if you're on Windows, you may have installed it for the Windows environment, but now you need to know how to do it for the Linux environment. Well, the best advice on knowing how to install these things is always going to be found at rubyonrails.org/download. That's where you can find the information you need to help get all of these pieces installed. Many ISPs also offer their own installation guides, frequently asked questions, and have customer support that can help you out if you get stuck. And Google is your friend here. If you're having problems with installation, Google around. Someone out there has written an installation guide for exactly your circumstances, I promise. Now, one thing that's going to be different about installing this software on the remote server from installing on your own is the fact that it's remote. The way that you're going to connect to these remote servers is once you sign up for an account, they'll give you the login information, and chances are the way you'll get there is by connecting via SSH. From the command line, you'll type SSH, you'll type a username, and then whatever the server name is, or maybe it's an IP address, and then it'll prompt you for a password. Once you enter that, you'll be logged in to that remote server in its command line. It'll be exactly as if that server were sitting right in front of you. There's no difference at all, and the commands that you issue will be exactly like the commands you've been issuing on your desktop. Okay, so now we've picked our ISP, and we've installed all the Rails software we need. Next thing we need to do is look at web servers and decide which web server we're going to be using. Up until now in development, we've been using WebBrick. That's the one that comes pre-installed with Rails, and it's a very, very basic web server. So basic that we can't use it for production at all. It's just not a viable option. There are several full-featured web servers that are very popular: Apache, Nginx, and LightTPD, or Lighty. Now, Apache is a great choice. It's been around a long time. It's very solid. Over half of the web runs on Apache. Nginx and Lighty are quickly gaining in popularity, but the community around them isn't quite as large. Then there's also some lightweight web servers. These are designed to be as fast as possible and to take up as little memory as possible. A lot of times they work in conjunction with a full-featured web server. Like the full-featured servers, I've listed them in roughly the popularity that I think they have. Passenger is definitely the most popular, then Mongrel, then Thin, and Unicorn is a fairly recent newcomer to the scene, but it's been getting a lot of buzz. So which one should you choose? Well, certainly if you're already familiar with something like Nginx, then you should go with that. But if you don't have familiar with any of these, then I recommend Apache and Passenger. Apache is pre-installed on most servers, and Passenger Mod Rails is easy to install and configure and will give you great results. The combo is very widely used. It's probably the most popular combination, and you'll find lots of people out there to help you out if you get stuck. There's also very good documentation, and there's tons of other blog posts and things like that that you can look for if you run into problems or need help getting them set up. The last thing I want us to look at are the deployment tools that you ought to consider to help you to deploy your application. The first is FTP software. This is a basic standard thing for any kind of web development. You're going to need to have file transfer protocol software that will allow you to move files from your local computer to the remote computer. Transmit, which is for Macintosh only, is a fantastic product. I used it for a lot of years. FileZilla for Windows is another good one. And then Expand Drive, which is the one that I've come to love the most and use all the time, and that's for both Mac and Windows. So you'll definitely want to pick out one of those to allow you to very quickly move files to and from the server. In addition to that, you should think about some source code management software. CVS and SVN are very popular software for source code management, but the Rails community has really centered around Git. So chances are most other developers that you meet and work with are going to be using Git. It really has taken off and become an essential tool of Rails development. Another vital tool of this ecosystem is GitHub. GitHub is an online service where you can get an account and then you can upload your Git repository to their remote server so that it can share it to other people from there. So then if you can have a team of people, they're all working on the code. When they make changes, they check in their changes to GitHub, and then everyone else who's collaborating on the software can pull down those changes from the GitHub server. So it provides sort of a central point for everyone to work from. Again, very popular in the Rails community. And it goes really nicely then with deploy scripting. And that's what Capistrano allows us to do. So it's another piece of software that allows you to write a deploy script in Ruby that will deploy your code for you. It'll do all the steps. It'll log in via SSH. It'll check out the latest version of your code from GitHub. It can run commands remotely, clean up the old versions, roll back to previous versions if there were problems. You can do just about anything you can do by SSHing to the server and typing in the command line. You can write a script for so that it's automated. And then all you have to do from your local computer is say, please run my Capistrano deploy script. And boom, all those steps that you've written in the script take place automatically and a new version of your application is deployed. It really does take the pain out of it. Now I know some of this may sound like just that much more that you have to learn, but they really have become an essential part of working with Rails and working in the Rails community. So even though you don't necessarily need to pick up these technologies today, you do want to think about them as you continue to grow and progress.